It hadn't just been a bad day. It had been one of those weeks where everything seemed to go wrong. I had spent years building a reputation as a dependable employee, yet today I had been publicly humiliated by my manager in front of my coworkers over a minor misunderstanding. What should have been a simple discussion turned into a harsh reprimand, his frustration squarely aimed at me. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. I just stood there, jaw clenched, silently absorbing the criticism. By the time I pulled into my driveway, exhaustion weighed on me. All I wanted was a hot shower and a moment of peace to soothe the pounding in my head. But as I neared the house, I spotted Tracy's car parked in my usual spot. My patience, already hanging by a thread, finally snapped. My grip on the steering wheel tightened, and the urge to honk boiled up inside me, but I let it go. Of course, my sister-in-law would show up uninvited, acting as if she owned the place. Too drained to start yet another pointless argument. I parked on the street, the crunch of gravel beneath my tires doing nothing to ease my frustration. The house was dim, but faint voices drifted from the kitchen. Taking a deep breath, I moved toward the sound, expecting Melissa to greet me with her usual, "Hey, how was your day?" But what I heard instead stopped me cold. Melissa's voice rang out, unmistakable. "I just don't love him anymore." Tracy responded with a quiet laugh, her tone laced with amusement. "You knew this was coming. You were never really over Liam. You just settled for Jordan because he was financially stable." The distant clink of wine glasses barely registered over the pounding in my head. I should have walked in, made my presence known. But something in my gut told me to stay quiet and listen. "I've reconnected with someone," Melissa admitted, excitement clear in her voice. "Now I see what I was missing. He's thrilling, Tracy. He makes me feel alive." Tracy chuckled again. "So what's the plan for the divorce?" I held my breath, my knuckles whitening as I gripped the doorframe. Melissa didn't hesitate. "I want out," she said firmly, "and I'll take what's mine." Tracy's voice remained casual. "And what's that?" "Well, the courts always favor women in these situations," Melissa continued without a shred of hesitation. "Jordan worked hard, but legally, half of everything belongs to me. And he doesn't even have a prenup." Tracy let out a low whistle. "Damn, that's cold." Melissa laughed. "Don't worry. Liam's successful, but why should I leave empty-handed after all these years? I've earned it." A strange calm settled over me. I wasn't about to storm in and confront her. No, that would make me look like a fool, desperate for answers when the truth was already laid bare. Instead, I would outmaneuver her, play her own game, and make sure she got exactly what she deserved. Without making a sound, I turned and walked away, slipping back out the door. No slamming, no shouting, just quiet resolve. For hours, I drove aimlessly, her words replaying in my mind like a curse. I settled for Jordan because he was stable. I'll take what's mine. She had already made up her mind. Our marriage was beyond saving, and if she was willing to play dirty, I had no choice but to act first. Pulling into an empty parking lot, I rested my forehead against the steering wheel. 3 years of marriage, built on nothing but deception. 3 years of effort, believing we were a team. And in the end, all of it had been for nothing. I had been nothing more than her financial safety net, a convenient source of stability. And now, she was ready to rip my life apart and take half of everything I had worked for. Melissa had never truly contributed to our life together. After we married, she spoke endlessly about focusing on a house and launching a business, but that dream never became reality. Instead, she spent her days shopping, dining out with her sister, and endlessly scrolling through social media, always complaining about a life she had put no effort into building. And yet, by law, she was entitled to half of my wealth. The thought made my stomach turn. Even after inheriting $25 million from my late father, I had been careful. I lived modestly, never flaunting my fortune, never making a spectacle of it. But if Melissa ever uncovered the true extent of my assets, she would demand her share without hesitation, unless I acted first. I straightened in my seat as clarity washed over me. It was time to disappear. Draining my accounts all at once would raise too many suspicions. I needed to be meticulous, methodical, silent in my approach. That night, I checked into a simple hotel under an alias, paying in cash. With my laptop open before me, I began shifting my investments. I didn't liquidate everything at once. That would be too obvious. Instead, I transferred assets in increments, funneling them into separate accounts. Some under my name, others hidden within shell companies I had quietly set up years ago. I emptied our shared account just enough to go unnoticed, leaving behind a balance that wouldn't immediately raise alarms. Step 2, vanish without a trace. Melissa would notice my absence soon enough. If she got suspicious, she might even report me missing. I needed a cover story, something believable, something that wouldn't involve the police. The next morning, I sent a brief message to my assistant. Hey, I have to take a last-minute business trip. Investors need me out of town for a while. She offered to book a flight, but I declined. I've got it covered. If anyone asked, they would assume I was simply away on business. Step 3, sever all ties. I ditched my phone, paid cash for a burner, canceled my credit cards, and erased every trace of myself from social media. To ensure no one raised a missing persons report, I sent an anonymous email to the police stating that I was leaving voluntarily. If Melissa tried to paint me as a runaway husband, authorities wouldn't waste their time investigating. By the time she woke up, reality would hit her like a brick wall. No money, no access to my accounts, and no clue where I had gone. And the best part? She had bet everything on Liam. She thought she could walk away from me and straight into a picture-perfect life with him. But Liam wouldn't save her. The moment he realized she was broke, he would disappear, just like I had. As I crossed the state line, a strange lightness filled my chest. With every mile that passed, the weight of betrayal, obligation, and deceit lifted. For the first time in years, I was free. No burdens, no manipulation. Just me and an open road ahead, filled with possibilities. A slow grin spread across my face, and I had never felt better. That I scowled, grabbed my hat, and made my way towards Charlotte and Caleb, who were busy fixing a broken water line. Caleb had gone off to check on a sick calf, leaving me on my own. As I got closer, something didn't sit right. This didn't feel like some random mishap. Then I heard voices. Instinctively, I slowed my pace, moving quietly toward the tree line. That's when I saw them. 2 men crouched by the fence, working quickly to widen the gap. My heartbeat kicked up. Cattle thieves. I'd heard Frank talk about rustlers before, but I never thought I'd find myself face to face with them. And yet, here they were, cutting their way into Silver Creek Ranch right before my eyes. One of them looked familiar. Tyler. I'd seen him at a rodeo a few weeks back. He worked for Howard Calloway, a man who ran a rival ranch and had a reputation for shady dealings. I should have called Caleb or the sheriff right away, but before I could move, something else caught my attention. A flash of movement near the creek. Too close. My stomach dropped when I saw Charlotte. She was making her way along a narrow path, her veterinary bag slung over her shoulder, likely heading to tend to an injured animal. She had no idea that Tyler and his partner were lurking just yards away, hidden in the brush. I didn't have time to think. I took off, but the sound of my boots against the dirt gave me away. Both men whipped around. Tyler's eyes widened when he recognized me. Well, if it isn't the new ranch hand, he said, straightening up. His friend snickered. You're trespassing, I said, my voice steady. Tyler smirked, stepping forward. And what exactly are you going to do about it? I think I'll stop you. Before he could react, I lunged. I wasn't just a ranch hand. I played football in high school, and I knew how to take a man down. I threw my full weight into him, knocking him flat. His partner charged at me, but I sidestepped his swing and delivered a hard right hook to his jaw. The fight didn't last long. Caleb arrived, shotgun in hand, and the second he cocked it, the rustlers froze. Drop it, Caleb ordered. Tyler's friend hesitated, until Caleb tilted the barrel slightly. The knife hit the dirt with a clatter. Charlotte emerged from a brush, her eyes wide as she took in the scene. I stood there breathless, my knuckles bloodied from the fight. Within half an hour, the sheriff arrived, and Tyler and his partner were hauled off in handcuffs. Turns out they'd been targeting ranches all over the area, and Silver Creek was just their latest hit. Their boss, Howard Calloway, wasn't far behind. He was arrested soon after. Frank and Margaret returned just in time to hear the whole story. Frank clapped a hand on my shoulder, grinning. Well, looks like you're more than just some city boy after all. But the reaction that caught me off guard the most came from Charlotte. She didn't say much at first. But later that evening, after supper, she found me in the barn. You could have gotten yourself killed, she said, her voice quieter than usual. I met her gaze. So could you. She shook her head. You're an idiot. But there was something else in her tone, something softer, maybe even respect. From that night on, everything changed. Charlotte had always kept her distance, watching, waiting for me to slip up. But after the Rustler incident, something shifted. She still tested me, still challenged me. But now there was something different in her eyes. Curiosity. She started noticing me. And, damn it, I started noticing her too. It was subtle at first. The way she always seemed to be nearby, even when she wasn't. The way her gaze lingered just a second longer when we talked. The way she brushed past me in the barn, just close enough for me to feel her warmth. One afternoon, while I was fixing a broken gate near the stables, I felt her watching me. You're always as quiet around me? She asked, leaning against the fence. I wiped the sweat from my brow. Depends on who I'm around. She smirked. You talk enough for both of us. I shrugged. I don't mind. She chuckled, shaking her head. But in her eyes, I saw something else, a flicker of amusement, and maybe, just maybe, something more.